Giving all praises to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachahakorash. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders at Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations, as always, to the elect. News and prophecy. All right, getting into a few things that are directly tied to the end of Esau's world as we are witnessing the old global order, all right, be destroyed in preparation for a new world order under the guise of making America great again. All right, the elites are using Donald Trump via Babylon the Great, the hammer of the earth, all right, to make moves that are shaking things up in preparation for their new world order. And everything we see happening is pretty much a fulfillment of biblical prophecy, which we always go into. We know that the beast, the EU, as well as NATO, will hate the whore. We see moves being made that will lead to that. And this is a reason we should thank Yahweh Bashmi Shai for understanding of this word, because there's many prophets and so-called great leaders of churches, all right, who have no idea what's happening, all right? Which camp do you see going into the World Economic Forum, tying it to the Bible, giving you an understanding of why these moves are being made, you know, getting into the breaking up of the beast system, all right? The Lord has set up leaders and prophets for you in these latter days that are tapping into these things, because Habakkuk told you at the end, these things would speak and not lie. So when we do these videos, again, it's to give praises to the names of Yahweh, which means he is, and we know that he is by his word being fulfilled. All right. Bahashem Yahweh Shai. All right. And as you can see, I have a few articles and a few videos and just some information showing you that we are in a revival of Rome, which is a topic I tap into often, but I can't get enough of it, as it gives me great joy to see that history is repeating itself. Okay, and these devils, all right, as the scriptures say, he would take understanding away from them. All right, as there would be no understanding in him. The book of Obadiah, verse 7, it says, all the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. All right, meaning that they're going to go to war with you. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee, they that eat thy bread, as these, you know, different nations who have formed a, you know, alliance and confederacy with Babylon the Great, you know, via, you know, democracies, or taking on the petrodollar, are now looking for ways outside of these things, as they see is not working for them. Okay, and as they're moving towards the NWO, many of these nations are starting to see America is for themselves. Okay, this is the post World War II order and agreement that these devils agreed upon is now being broken, as Trump says he no longer needs international law. He's operating upon his own impulse and instinct, and we know he's just a character doing the bidding of the elite, but this all fulfills biblical prophecy. So the very men who formed a confederacy with him are laying a wound under him, and there is no understanding in him. These devils can't see that they are fulfilling biblical prophecy. They can't see that history is getting ready to repeat itself, as, you know, the debasement of their currency is, you know, turning around and biting them in the ass. The same thing that happened in Spain, French. Okay. And here we are again. Okay. History continuously repeats itself, and the powers that be have no understanding. The Lord has taken the understanding out of them to tap into what they are really doing, because they have their mindset on world domination, control, NWO, MOTB. All right. And right now, when you're looking in the news, you're seeing nothing but utter confusion. Okay. And as they're preparing to wage war on the U.S. citizens, and as they have done in countries throughout the world, destabilizing their government, setting up order out of chaos, we're seeing that happening here in Babylon the Great. And we'll tap into the ICE scenario in another video. In this lesson, we're just going to deal with this whole board of peace, because we know prophetically, right, when this devil starts to talk about peace and safety, all right, then sudden destruction is coming. So we're very close to the end of this man's world, the end of Esau's world. 1 Thessalonians 5:1, but of the times and seasons, brethren, you have no need that I write unto you, because your leaders, your prophets should be showing you the times that we're in. As the scripture saying, Ecclesiastes 8:5, a wise man's mind or heart understandeth both time and judgment. So you know, seeing the things that are happening, you should very well understand that these are all things tied to biblical prophecy, so that you take your emotion out of it, okay, and you are on par with what the will of the Lord is. As the scriptures say, understanding. All right, let's get that. Understanding what the will of the Lord is. See if we can find that. Understanding. Boom. Ephesians 5:17. Wherefore be ye not unwise, but understand what the will of the Lord is. Understanding what the will of the Lord is. And what is the will of the Lord? Okay, the will of the Lord is to destroy this current system. All right, of course, destroy Babylon the Great and set up a righteous kingdom. Okay, and pretty much he's going to have the leaders of the world in a very reprobate and wicked, demonic state. There's a lot of people going to suffer. That's all the will of the Lord. You know, ICE. All right. Believe it or not, those are instruments set up by the Lord for judgment, just as the Assyrians were, just as at one point the Egyptians were, just as one point the Babylonians. Okay. The Greeks. Okay. The Romans. These were all empires set up to send judgment on our people. Okay. And it's no different in this time, as Jacob's trouble is very, very close. Okay, we can't get emotional as to the times and the things that are happening. All right, we ultimately are only concerned with the elect, as it says in the book of Esdras. All right, only be concerned with those who be like unto thee, those who are repentant, those who are, you know, fed up with this madness and want to see the throne of David established on earth as it is in heaven. See, that's who we're worried about. Those who seek true justice and judgment. All right. Not hoping that the powers that be switch it up and give us some sort of fair chance in this world. It's not going to happen. And it's only going to get worse. And people who stand for righteousness are going to be, all right, punished for that. So that we're going to need divine intervention. We're going to need justice and judgment from another realm, because this realm is too polluted. So 1 Thessalonians 5:1, all right, as we are feeding the sheep, but of the times and seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that day should overtake you as a thief. See, we're not in the dark. We're not, all right, you know, in utter confusion concerning these things, because we have the vision and the leadership that the Lord has set up constantly give you understanding as to why these things are happening. Constantly give you understanding that we have to live through these things and keep the faith. So we're not in darkness. We know very well what's to come. All right. And we believe through the Holy Spirit, as the beloved elder brother Amawang Gabar said, I believe without a shadow. I don't have any doubt that the Lord is going to come through for us if we keep on the right path. I don't think the Lord brought us this far to just leave us out to dry and have us destroyed, starved out, frozen to death. No, he's going to be there for us. He has been there for us. Okay. So we're not in darkness as concerning what the Lord is getting ready to do. So when we see these moves being made by these elites centered around, okay, peace and safety, as you see here, Trump's board of peace would have global scope on one man in charge. Okay. Board of Peace. See that? And it's all centered around an NWO. Okay. And we're going to get into how everything that we're witnessing mimics, see, what was going on in the ancient Roman Empire, the Western Roman Empire. But as you see here, when they shall say peace and safety, the Lord is going to destroy them when he is about to fill his belly. All right. As it says in the book of Job, right? Job chapter 20 and 22. In the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits, and they are in straits. Okay. Because this is a horrible plan, is tacky, is stupid, but they're going to try it. Because why? They have the monetary means, they have the military means, they have control, but things are getting ready to spiral out of control for this devil. See that? They got the media on their side. They can just paint anyone as a terror, a person of disinterest and against their, program, and make moves on them and pass laws to outlaw them. So this devil is looking like, we're getting ready to win. Even a lot of the back and forth we see in the news, a lot of it is theater, as all of them are in on it. But all right, the elites are not going to agree as they move into this new system, because it's prophetic. So when things get a little confusing and too much as pertaining to everything happening, we have the Holy Scriptures to tap into. Okay, which gives us the end result before it takes place. Because we can go read about the destruction of Babylon right now. I can click on Isaiah 47. Right now, I can click on Revelation 18, Revelation 17. I can go into all of these various different prophecies showing you the outcome. See, we're just living through it. And the Lord has aided us via the Holy Spirit as a benefit for us to keep the faith through these hard times. Because we're going to have to what? Continuously believe. Okay? Through this mess. So in the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits, and every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. And that word wicked, as we always show you, means the laborer going into the working class who's going to lose it. Worldwide, the working class is losing it. Whether it's Iran, whether it's the Europe, over here in America, they're still a little docile, but after they figure out where this Trump fiasco is going, a lot of the working class is going to lose their damn mind. Okay, because you've been ignored by the left and by the right. And now, all right, the confusion between Democrat and Republican is getting ready to just turn into utter chaos, man. And that's what they want. You've been overstepped by both. None of them have worked on the behalf of the common people. Okay. The left fattened the pockets of the elites through through confusion. All right. And all of these alphabet organizations and, dangling the hot link in front of Jake, making them believe they got a voice for them. Okay. And the right is just fattening the pockets of the elites via setting up the technocracy. Okay. Which, if the left were doing half of the things that Trump is doing right now, the right wingers will be screaming. Now you see the right wingers calling for an abolishment of the Second Amendment. They're showing you how much magic is really taking place. So it's all a farce, man. But pretty soon, these people are going to realize what's really happening. And a lot of them are. Okay. And it's going to be a big rebellion, which that's not our fight. It's not our job to go and fight what the government is doing. It's not our job to go and stop what ICE is doing. It's our job, all right, to remain faithful in belief in Yahweh Bashim Yahushua and teach this word, okay, and hope for the mercy of Yahweh through Yahweh Shai. That's our job, okay. We understand that these people are set up to do what they're doing, and it fulfills prophecy, okay. So fret not, brothers and sisters, fret not. Right. So when he is about to fill his belly, Job 20 and 23, which that's what they're trying to do, fill their belly, the Most High shall cast the fury of his wrath upon him and shall rain it upon him while he is eating. He shall flee from the iron weapon. They're going to jump into those bunkers and the bull of steel shall strike him through. So his whole kingdom is getting ready to be, this whole thing is getting ready to be disrupted as, key moves are being made. As you see here, Trump is breaking the old global order. Okay. And I'm not clicking it because Washington Post is they're requiring you to, pay, right? But all we need is these first two lines. Trump is breaking the old global order. Allies brace for economic risk. See, his allies are bracing for economic risk as his look is more stout than his fellows. The U.S. is abandoning its role in the global economy, pursuing an American first approach that is causing a shift in global economy. It's causing a shift in post-World War II policies that define this beast system. Okay, and again, Trump's board of peace would have global scope, but one man in charge. Okay, and his European allies and the rest of his allies are looking at him like he's crazy. Okay, a lot of European allies are saying they don't want no parts of it. Okay, Trump, along with world leaders, signed Gaza Board of Peace Charter. All right, as they are boasting and making Gaza a technological hub of paradise. Okay, that was the goal the whole time. All right, President Donald Trump unveils his International Board of Peace and presided over a signing ceremony at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Okay, which we always show you that's a high place. It's the highest city, not the highest place, but the highest city in Europe. And we know what these devils do on high places. You can look up what did heathen do in high places, all right, historically. And what you'll find out is that they offer up sacrifices and they call on their gods, all right, and they do wickedness so that their enterprise is forward. It says, where multiple world leaders agreed to pursue the lasting agreement for Gaza. And it's very important they get control of that region, right? Because Gaza is it's a portion of the land allotted to Judah. See, when you look at the promised land, Judah was allotted a particular land. Gaza is within that region. Okay, and there's a plan that they have with this land, all right, as ultimately they know these places are holy unto the Heavenly Father. So it's basically Cain offering up his sacrifice all over again, which is getting ready to be rejected, which we know this land was in times past under the control of, the Palestinians, they say Hamas, which this fulfills Ezekiel, the 36th chapter and the 5th verse. It says, therefore, saith the Lord God, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen and against all Idumea, which have appointed my land into their possession with the joy of all their hearts, all right, with despiteful minds to cast it out for a prey. And the scriptures tell us, all right, in Luke, the 21st chapter, Luke 21 and 24, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captive into all nations. And that happened after 70 AD. All right, which eventually were brought over here. All right, and the rest is history. It says, in Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. The natural Gentiles, which that word just means ethnicity or ethnos. So depending on the prophecy or the scripture, all right, where the word is used, you have to have the spiritual discernment to understand what it's talking about. It's speaking of the heathen nations who will be in control of Jerusalem until their times will be fulfilled, showing you that the true biblical Israelites would not have control, all right, over Jerusalem or the Holy Land or regions of it, all right, at the very end of these ages that's going to lead into the kingdom of heaven. Okay, and we've also showed you, let's see if I can find this. All right, that U.S. pitches Project Sunrise plan to turn Gaza into a high-tech metropolis. And this whole Trump Board of Peace is centered around bringing peace to the ongoing back and forth that has went on, all right, on paper since 1948. But we know these devils, even before then, all right, were going and taking portions of land away from the Palestinians who were there, which the land doesn't belong to any of them. But that is an ongoing conflict, which Trump is boasting and bringing peace to it. And, you know, that, you know, being at the forefront of their NWO. But again, as we see here, their goal is to turn that land into, I keep losing it. There we go. Into a high-tech, all right, metropolis. Okay. A digital city. Okay. That's all they're doing. This is what they've done worldwide. All right. They've, you know, caused some type of catastrophic event or wage war. And what follows is them setting up hubs for their NWO. Okay. And this is a strategic, you know, positioning for that. All right. And again, with this whole Board of Peace, which we'll get into a little bit of it, it says the board is intended to bring together nations willing to support diplomatic efforts, reconstruction, and governance in the region following years of fighting to cease the fire negotiations. While substantial number of leaders signed on, participation is not universal. Some prominent nations, including the United Kingdom, Canada, and France, have declined to join the board, citing concerns over its structure, mandate, or potential overlap with existing international institutions, with the UN being one of them. Okay, additionally, Russian President Putin has not signed the charter, though discussions about Moscow's involvement were ongoing. Okay, supporters of the Board of Peace see it as a new platform, fostering stability, rebuilding Gaza, and preventing further violence in the region by providing a multilateral framework for cooperation. Critics argue that the initiative lacks clarity on enforcement mechanisms and could challenge or complicate the role of established organizations like the UN. Okay, the ceremony in Davos, framed by Trump as a step forward in a more peaceful future for Gaza, underscores ongoing international efforts to address the long-standing conflict, all right, and chart a path forward through diplomatic engagement and shared commitments. Okay, and we will do is play some of this video off of End Time Headlines. Trump's Board of Peace. Let's listen to a little bit of this, get a few other videos, a few other articles, and then we'll get out of here. But again, Daniel 7:20, and the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, the other that came up, okay, is Babylon the Great. The 10 horns represent the subordinate vassals of the Roman Empire, which are back today via the EU. All right, it says, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellow. And I beheld the same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. See that? So ultimately, this is the kingdom that we would be in when the Lord made his decision to send back his only begotten Son. And he has made war with us. Both northern and southern kingdom has suffered at this man's hands. All right. So we're living in a time where moves are being made. As we see, Babylon's look is more stout than his fellows. These are moves that are being made that mimic the fall of ancient Rome, as we'll show you, that are being made so the Lord can destroy this setup, okay, and bring about World War III and get us up out of here.
AB 25, world leaders have already accepted. Again, this was an interview with Steve Witkoff on CNBC on Wednesday. Now, let me give you the list. I want to give you the list of who these leaders are, these key leaders and nations who have officially accepted or are currently engaged in this board of peace. All right, Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu confirmed as of today, January 21st, that he is on board.
Of course he's on board.
President Trump's newly proposed Board of Peace, which would supervise the rebuilding of Gaza, is expected to be signed by world leaders in Davos this week. Invitations were sent to allies like Canada, France, Britain, but also to non-U.S. allies like Russia's President Vladimir Putin. More than 20 countries have joined the Board of Peace, but there are growing concerns over exactly who will be part of this, with at least one world leader already declining. That is French President Emmanuel Macron. News Station's Libby Dean is live at the White House. So, Libby, what are you learning about the countries joining this Board of Peace?
Well, good afternoon to you, Nicole. This is really set to be a major moment in President Trump's quick trip that we're seeing play out overseas right now. Tomorrow morning in Switzerland, there's going to be the signing ceremony to formalize the president's Board of Peace, which he will be the chair of. And the board, it'll oversee Gaza as a part of that next phase of that ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. And one of the major goals of this board is to actually oversee the disarmament of Hamas. And President Trump, ahead of that signing tomorrow, saying this at the World Economic Forum in Switzerland today.
It's a Board of Peace, and it started on Gaza, and I appreciate what you said on Gaza, because it's true. If we weren't involved, there'd be no peace. It's peace. We have peace in the Middle East now, and you might have Hamas. We have a little flame here and there, but basically that'll be taken out. If they don't get rid of the guns, then they'll be, then they will be very unhappy people. You know, we'll have no choice. They will be eliminated.
In addition to that threat from the president, as far as this pressure on Hamas goes, ahead of this peace board signing, the U.S. Treasury actually announcing today it's targeting Hamas funding networks, slapping sanctions on 6 Gaza-based organizations. And what they do is they claim to provide this medical care to Palestinian civilians. But according to the United States Treasury, they support Hamas's military wing. Now, as for this...
And we know that this devil, when he says peace, war is really in his heart. Okay? That's just how he operates. Okay? These are a bunch of witches and warlocks. Okay? But we're not in the time of peace either. Okay? Peace. Let's see here. Psalms 120:7. I am for peace, but when I speak, they are for war. All right, they're preparing war. Okay. What am I thinking of? Under his tongue. All right, he speaks smoothly, but under his tongue is a sword being drawn. Okay. This is Job 20:12. Though wickedness be sweet in his mouth, though he hide it under his tongue, right? So wickedness is sweet in his mouth. Psalms 10:7, his mouth is full of cursing and deceit and fraud. Under his tongue is mischief and vanity. Okay.
The scope of this peace board, it's shaping out to be much broader than just overseeing the Gaza deal. And that has actually led to quite a few countries raising these concerns that the board would ultimately rival the Charter of the United Nations. And according to U.S. officials, around 30 world leaders have committed so far out of the 50 or so invitations that went out from the United States, countries including UAE, Pakistan, Hungary. They do plan to sign on, while some European allies, they declined those invitations. For now, those include France, Norway, and Sweden.
So as you can see, some European allies have declined, showing you a fracture in their alliance.
Who have declined, but there are quite a few countries who have remained non-committal to the president's Board of Peace, including Russia and Ukraine so far. A lot up in the air, Nicole, ahead of tomorrow's signing. So it's really going to be key to watch here who shows up, who signs on. And we know the president also plans to meet with Ukrainian President Zelensky tomorrow as well. Nicole.
So, Libby, interesting twist in this. What are you learning about Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu accepting an invite to be a part of this?
Yeah, this is a noteworthy one, Nicole, given that close relationship between the prime minister and President Trump. It was really noteworthy to see Israel publicly raise these concerns about this peace board, and it centered upon Netanyahu's concern about several of the invitations that went out to countries, particularly those countries like Qatar and Turkey, which Israel sees as having these views of sympathetic views towards Hamas. But Israel's decision to actually join this board has sparked this controversy of its own, with critics arguing that including Israel, one of the main parties to that conflict that we've seen play out in Gaza, that undermines the peace board's credibility as a neutral body and to oversee Gaza's reconstruction, because that is one of the major portions of this. But there are the supporters of Israel's inclusion that argue that excluding Israel would actually make this peace board pretty ineffective in its early days because they control Gaza's borders, Gaza's airspace. So these rebuilding efforts would essentially be incredibly difficult without Israel's inclusion. But I was just speaking with a White House official, Nicole, about all of this. And while the main focus initially is going to be about Gaza and this peace deal and rebuilding there, it's a broader piece that the president is looking forward to with this peace board. And it's not just that conflict there, but conflicts around the world that it's going to focus on. And that's why we've seen this criticism from countries that say that it might conflict with the United Nations Charter.
Let me read a little of this here. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said as of today that he has agreed to join U.S. President Donald Trump's Board of Peace in a departure from an earlier stance when his office criticized the makeup of the board's committee tasked with overseeing Gaza. Now, Norway and Sweden, meanwhile, said they would not be joining the board at this stage, following in the footsteps of France. And we'll get to that in just a moment. But again, as of today, the recording of this morning, again, it's probably about 11 a.m. Eastern. By the time this airs, it'll be 8 p.m. Eastern tonight, and 7 p.m. Central. But Benjamin Netanyahu is now agreed to be a part of this peace, or this board of peace. Also joining is Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, no surprise there, Hungary, Argentina, Canada, Morocco has joined. Other confirmed nations is Vietnam, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan, Kosovo, Bahrain, and Albania. Now, pending members, President Vladimir Putin of Russia has been invited. Unbelievable. India, China, even President Xi was sent an invitation to be a part of this.
And India most likely won't be a part of it, but they're currently doing trade deals with European Union members, okay, which that's Persia in the Holy Scriptures. As a matter of fact, let's pull this up real quick. Let's go here.
A new world order is in the making. European Union and India are on the same page. They are trying to usher in a new era of mutual trust and trade synergy. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen arrived in the national capital. She was received by the Minister of State for Commerce and Industry, Jitin Prasad. The visit is symbolic and it extends well beyond trade. The Ursula von der Leyen, along with European Council President Antonio Luis Santos da Costa, will serve as the chief guest at India's 77th Republic Day parade. This visit will be followed by the India-EU summit and the formalization of a trade agreement. Now, speaking at Davos's World Economic Forum, von der Leyen said that European Union is at the cusp of a historic trade agreement with India. The Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal described the agreement as the mother of all deals. EU has described India as indispensable to Europe's economy.
The European Union, covering 700 million citizens across 2 regional blocs over the Atlantic, and why we're making serious progress towards finalising a further fantastic trade agreement with India, which would cover 2 billion citizens. So I think we can see very clearly that the value of responsible, mature leadership on the global stage is...
And that's a poke at Babylon. So as we can see, again, we always get in Daniel, the 2nd chapter, they're partly weak and they're partly strong. All right. We're seeing iron mixed with miry clay, where there's differences in economically and how certain countries want to move forward. All right. But as you can see, they're making a move with India. India was invited to the, Board of Peace and haven't accepted yet. But it's just a bunch of confusion. What's really happening is the Lord is getting ready to have these heathen wage war. OK, that's what's really coming. All of these things are going to lead to war. OK, because these are things happening outside of the grip of the U.S. dollar. OK,
paying off in terms of the EU trade agenda, in terms of our efforts to diversify our trade partners and give ourselves the maximum economic potential from our partnerships around the globe.
Delhi is accelerating strategic and trade ties with the rest of the world as the impasse over Washington's 50% tariffs on India spills over into the new year. The External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar met with the ambassadors from EU member states and stressed the importance of cooperation in order to de-risk the world economy. Now, India is the world's 4th largest and also the fastest growing major economy in the world, on track to crossing the $4 trillion mark in terms of GDP, overtaking Japan this year. Negotiations between India and the EU were relaunched in 2022 after a 9-year pause, gaining traction last year amidst rising trade tensions. In August, President Donald Trump doubled the tariffs on Indian imports to as much as about 50%. They are, in fact, amongst the highest in the world.
So basically, U.S. leverage is being diminished on goods, all right? Here's another one.
India and the European Union are on the verge of sealing one of the biggest trade deals of the decade. At the India-EU summit on 27 January 2026, both sides are expected to announce a landmark free trade agreement. An agreement that brings together nearly 2 billion people and almost one-fourth.
So we're basically seeing nations operate outside of these tariffs being put down by Babylon the Great, all right? So this says Trump's board of peace, why major powers like India, Russia, and France didn't join the grouping, okay? You can watch this video. We'll get into that. Let's go back here and get some more of this, and we'll get some other articles and some prophecies.
This, but it has not yet officially been confirmed whether he accepted or declined it. Ukraine, Turkey, all of these have been extended as well. Now I'm going to jump over here. We'll get back to the inner circle of the committee. Now I thought this was interesting. Trump threatens 200% tariffs on French wine after France rejects Gaza's board of peace. According to this report, Trump threatened Monday to impose 200% tariffs on French wine, including champagne, after France declined to join his proposed board of peace. This is according to a U.S.-led body intended to oversee the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas and supervise Gaza's reconstruction. France was among the countries invited last week to participate. The board was announced Friday with formal invitations recently shortly afterward by the administration. Okay, so we've already went over this. A senior French official said Monday that Paris did not intend to join, citing concerns that the board's charter raised serious questions about respect for the role of the United Nations. Critics have argued that the initiative could, quote, sideline existing international mechanisms. Translation, it could completely destroy the current global order, aka the United Nations. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? Chime in. Let us know in the comments. Trump has repeatedly accused the UN of liberal bias and waste. Asked about France's refusal, Trump said he would impose steep tariffs on French exports if Paris took what he described as a hostile stance, suggesting the economic pressure could push President Macron to reverse course.
So, again, this is nothing but prophecy, okay? It's nothing but prophecy. A divided kingdom in the end times, man. Daniel 2:44, the days of these kings. No, Daniel 2:40. Okay. 41, it says, whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, the revival of Rome, part potter's clay and part iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, as the toes of the feet were part iron and part clay, the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. So they don't agree. They're not cleaving to one another. This is what we're witnessing. All right. And it's a beauty to see these prophecies come to pass. Now, what I did here was I just typed in chat up to date. You know, what is the Board of Peace all about, and why are certain nations rejecting it? It says the Board of Peace is a new international initiative put forward by the U.S. Donald Trump, initially tied to Gaza's ceasefire. So the small hats are at the forefront of this NWO. Okay, they're at the forefront of everything. Okay, even ICE over here in your cities is operating on behalf of the small hat. Okay, it says tied to the reconstruction process after the recent Israel-Hamas conflict. Okay, I wonder who's at the forefront of that. Okay, which the land doesn't belong to any of them, but come on now. It is envisioned as a global body to oversee stabilization and reconstruction in Gaza, support governance reforms, demilitarization and humanitarian relief, potentially mediate and address other global conflicts in the future. According to draft experts, Trump would serve as the chairman, possibly for life. Okay. And if he's over this, what is the need for being the president of the United States? Again, they're setting up a technocracy. Countries invited can be temporary members or pay large sums, about $1 billion for, all right, permanent seats. And you invest in this. It's basically like an investment on a new business. All right. You will definitely win in the end. Okay. Some U.S. officials and supporters present a more flexible alternative to traditional UN peace mechanism. See? Okay. Why is Gaza central? Yada, yada, yada. You can look into that. Major criticisms of the Board of Peace. It undermines the United Nations. A central criticism of many Western nations is that the Board of Peace could supersede or weaken the UN system, especially the Security Council, even though the initial mandate is tied to a UN resolution about Gaza. Some diplomats describe it as a parallel international order with one leader, Trump, holding disproportionate authority. Okay, concentration of power. Reports say Trump would have near total control over membership and decision making, with the ability to veto, just like the UN does, and potentially shape the board's agenda unilaterally. Because whatever war crimes that are, international crimes that are, done by the US and the small hat, particularly, it usually gets vetoed by the UN anyway. So the U.S. pretty much, Washington, D.C. is at the forefront of this any goddamn way. Okay. It says, or control, which they're used as the hammer by the elite. Lack of legal and institutional grounding. Critics point out the board's charter and financing arrangements is unclear. Legitimacy concerns because Palestinians, especially elected representatives, are not included at the leadership level. Many analysts argue that the board lacks local legitimacy in Gaza and broader, all right, Middle East peace processes. Okay. Pay for influence perception. The idea is that wealthy countries can pay large sums of money to gain permanent seats has been criticized as a pay-to-play model seen by someone undermining genuine diplomatic engagement. Which countries are rejecting it? Okay. Several countries in Western Europe and parts of Scandinavia have publicly refused. France, okay, Germany, Norway, Sweden, Spain, Italy, Slovenia, okay, all a part of the beast system. Canada has expressed conditional interest, but pushed back against the idea of paying for permanent status in its negotiating terms. Other major powers like the UK, Russia, China, and India have not yet committed and appear cautious, partly due to questions of scope, legitimacy, or geopolitical calculations. So we're seeing the old world order be destroyed. Okay. And you can read more on that. Let's go here. So I said, does this board of peace mimic anything in ancient Rome or any other emperors did? Yes, very much so. While Trump's board of peace is modern in form, its structure is and logic strongly echo several Roman imperial precedents. So this is nothing but the image of the beast speaking. All right, we'll get into a little bit of it, but we always go into Revelation, the 13th chapter. The image of the beast is speaking through everything we're seeing. Okay. It says Rome is actually the best historical analog we have for understanding why many governments are uneasy. Rome did not rule by conquest alone. It ruled by peace boards. Rome perfected something called Pax Romana. All right. But this peace was administered, not mutual. Rome created extra senatorial bodies, councils, and governors that claimed to stabilize regions, reorganize governance, control reconstruction, enforce order, extracted loyalty. And while saying this is for peace, they make a desert and call it peace. This is what they've been doing the whole damn time. Because where are all of those Palestinians at? Okay. And what have you done worldwide? Okay. That sentence alone explains why modern diplomats bristle. The key Roman precedent that mirrored the Board of Peace, okay, imperial commissions, extraordinary commands, Roman emperors frequently bypassed the Senate by creating special commissions with broad authority, undefined timelines, personal loyalty to the emperor. Augustus, all right, Imperium Maius, greater authority than any governor. Special envoys to Judea, Syria, and Egypt. These commissions were legal enough, but outside of normal republican checks. This is what he's setting up. Parallel, the Board of Peace exists outside of the UN's normal collective structure, while central authority vested in one figure, much like Roman extraordinary commands. All right. Client state administration. Rome did not immediately annex sensitive regions. Instead, it called for client rulers, oversaw taxation, security, and rebuilding, retain ultimate authority. Judea is declared example. Herod ruled under Roman approval, right? And Edomite, and Amalekite, right? Rome controlled military outcomes. Local governments existed, but sovereignty did not. The parallel, the Board of Peace proposes external oversight of Gaza's reconstruction and governments without full local sovereignty. A classic Roman client state model, okay? And this is what many nations around the world are trying to operate outside of. Okay, as a matter of fact, let's get the book of Habakkuk, okay? They're noticing the pattern of these small hats in Babylon. Okay, Habakkuk 2:5. Yea, also because he transgressed by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, and the nations have committed fornication with him. Let's get that in the book of Revelation 18. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. You know, there's democracy taking on the dollar. Okay, this world order, right? They've bowed to it. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. The merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And as you can see, this devil is all over the place, man. It's hard to keep up. It's hard to, who's in control? You got this board, this meeting, that meeting, this, like what the hell is going on? So he's all over the place. And all of these various different nations have drunk down that wine, and now they're looking for a way out of it. Okay? As a matter of fact, Revelation 17. Boom. Revelation 17 and 1. And there came up the seven angels which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying, Come hither, and I will show thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. See? And now we're seeing nations trying to operate outside of that wine, outside of that grip. Okay? And America is overextending itself. It's being set up for destruction, because very, very soon, all of these nations are going to come together and say, we need a better route. And the two key factors of the hell that's going on and the strain that is straining our economies is these devils. They talk about peace, but they really are controlling you, right? Who enlarges his desire as hell, right? Habakkuk 2:5. Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied. He's never satisfied. Okay? Now he's coming with another way to get control. And the small hat, all right, is the pimp, and America's the whore. Okay? But gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Shall not all of these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb, and say, Woe to him that increaseth in that which is not his, how long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay, which is that debt. All right, which the number one aspect of that debt is holding dollars on reserve for the purpose of getting oil. Now we're witnessing nations, all right, looking for ways around that. And this is why Trump is, under the orders of the small hat, under the orders of the elite, basically, is trying to garner all of this control to himself, because the grip of America is being loosened. Okay. Let's see here.
Man, I'll tell you what though, like him, hate him, love him, Trump has weaponized tariffs. I mean, these are his weapons of mass destruction are these tariffs. I mean, he's just threatening everybody with tariffs. Greenland, or the EU. Now he's threatening France here. He's threatening China. He's threatening India. He's just using these tariffs as a weapon of mass destruction. Again, I'm not here to get political on this. I'm just saying it's just a fact. It's interesting. That's all I'm saying here. Now let's watch this video. This is more information on this.
The rebuilding of Gaza is expected to be signed by world leaders in Davos this week, but there are some growing concerns over who.
And this dude's a Zionist. He believes in America. He believes that those small hats are the people. Okay, he brings out decent information, but when it comes to prophecy, he's out of there. As a matter of fact, there's a video of him. There's this particular article where he's calling the Iran Elam. So these Christians are definitely watching and taking notes, but the full understanding has not been given unto them. When have we ever seen, okay, the Christians talking about the kings of the calling the Iran Elam? When have we ever seen that? All right. But we get a kick out of it. All right. Because when you hear these individuals try to put together understanding and prophecy, they don't get it. He's of the opinion that America is not Babylon, which is a video that the priest Tazama went into. And Lord willing, I'll get into it. But yeah, the moves that America are making, all of these tariffs, what he's, talking about doing in Greenland is just causing a rift. And Russia is celebrating the growing NATO rift over Greenland. They're loving it. Okay, because remember, NATO was created to combat the dominance of Russia. But Russia eventually went soft and weak. The USSR disbanded, but now Russia is back formulating the beast system of their own. Okay, why is all these damn genes everywhere? Okay, look up some genes, and all of a sudden, every gene's everywhere. I mean, the Kremlin is openly welcoming a growing rift within the NATO, all right, which the word NATO means birth. Okay, so this is a part of the rebirth of Rome, okay, over the controversy surrounding Greenland, okay, seeing it as a sign of weakening unity among Western allies. See? Putin, all right, Gog, all right, has spent nearly 2 decades trying to undermine NATO, which Moscow views as a principal threat to its strategic interest. Okay. And again, Russia is leading the wave in these latter days, along with China, Iran, and so forth, against the West, against the small hat and against the West. Okay. Now, as U.S. President Donald Trump pushes for greater American control of Greenland and Danish territory, Russian officials are reacting positively to the discord this has stirred within the alliance. All right. So all of these nations are just sitting back looking at the rift going on between these Edomites. All right. That have formed this alliance with the beast system, and they're watching it being broken up, which is nothing but biblical prophecy. Let's go back here. All right. It says the Roman peace narrative. Rome framed its authority as ending chaos, stopping violence, civilizing barbarians, bringing prosperity. All right. Coins, inscriptions, and monuments proclaim pax, which is peace, security, order. Okay. It says Augustus literally minted coins declaring peace has arrived, even while armies enforced it. Parallel, the Board of Peace sympathizes stability, reconstruction, security, order, while critics argue it masks power and consolidation, not neutral mediation. Did Roman emperors personally chair peace bodies? Yes, functionally. Often emperors personalized personally appointed governors, interpreted law, granted or withdrew favor, attributed disputes between regions. They were final authority, living security, source of legitimacy. What pleases the prince has to force the law. All right, Roman journalist, I guess. It says, Opian. It says, concerns arise because the port of peace places interpretive and executive authority in one person, not a rotating or representative body. Okay. Why Rome used this body and why it failed. Rome used these mechanisms because they work quickly, reduce resistance initially, centralize control, but they failed because local resentment grew, and that's what's going to happen. Legitimacy eroded, overreach replaced consent. All right. And this is where we see America. All right. Overreach. Okay. Which is one of the reasons Rome fell. Their military was spread too thin. They were all over the place. The center could not manage complexity. Okay. Like he's trying to go over there in Iran and talk all of this crap, but that's going to end. It's not going to end well. Okay. Iran ain't just Iran got hands too. So you go over there trying to overthrow their government and force a regime change. That's going to be met with a big time opposition. Okay. Because you're abroad trying to war. Okay. Eventually, provinces revolted, trucks collapsed, bureaucracy replaced justice. This is exactly the concern of modern states' rise. Okay. And then he went into something I've asked about before. Why this feels familiar to you, because it's picking up on things that I'm asking. Babylon, Rome, and authority versus righteousness. Scripture connects these same patterns. The kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. Wow, I just read that. Rome offered peace without repentance, order without righteousness. Okay. Key differences. The port of peace has no standing army, but they will. Let's see. Why countries recognize the Roman pattern immediately. European states, especially know Roman history immediately, have been on both sides of empire, recognize peace structures that bypass collective law. That is why Germany, France, Italy, Spain, and Scandinavia are cautious of rejecting it. They've seen this movie before. See that? So yes, the Board of Peace closely mirrors Roman imperial peace mechanisms. Okay. And this is what we're witnessing. Okay. I said real quick, why do they say Trump is destroying the old world order with these moves? Okay. They say Trump's destroying the old world order because his moves openly challenge post-World War II systems of global governance that the U.S. itself helped build and that most presidents, Republican and Democrat, have protected. They're moving into a whole new system. Okay, which the MOTB is in mind. It says this, all right, where they don't need governments, all right, and electoral and democracy as they did before. Okay, they're done with that. This isn't just rhetoric. It's about how power, legitimacy, and cooperation are organized globally. What the old world order is, okay, built after 1945. Okay, the United Nations as central authority for peace and legitimacy. All right, multilateral institutions, UN, IMF, World Bank, World Health Organization, WTO, and NATO, which America is boasting and leaving all of that. Okay, as a matter of fact, okay, the U.S. has formally withdrew from the World Health Organization. Okay, leaving debt. Okay, today the United States officially withdrew from who that, all right, which you see the serpent on the pole, right? Okay, it says 1 year after the Trump administration shared its intent to leave. At that time, the United States was said to provide about 20% of WHO's operational budget, but this week WHO officials said that the United States has failed to pay membership dues for both 24 and 25, leaving the global alliance and a $278 million debt. Okay, so nothing but division. All right, but again, they're forming an even greater world order than they already had. They're leaving the old behind and they're coming with a new. Okay, and they will have something in place for the next demic. All right, when they tell you to put the mask back on. Okay, it's going to be even stricter as we see these flu bugs and things popping back up. Okay, so that doesn't mean because they left WHO, they're not going to tell you to put the mask back on or bring some a new demic and more organized chaos. Okay, that they're definitely going to do that. Okay, so we're seeing the old world order be left behind. Okay, rules-based diplomacy, treaties, consensus, and norms, which those alliances have been broken. U.S. leadership through institutions, not personality. All right, stability over speed. Okay, even when the U.S. acted unilaterally, it usually sought UN cover afterwards, worked within alliances. See, this is what we see happening. And this may be boring to some of you, but it's prophecy. Those alliances, again, let's get Daniel 2 and 43. Wherein I saw as iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, forming alliances through marriage, forming alliances through, setting up puppet governments and, getting control. But they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with miry clay. Let's read this in the NLT, right? So like NLT. It says, this mixture of iron and clay also shows that these kingdoms will try to strengthen themselves by forming alliances with each other through intermarriage. In early Europe, all right, definitely use marriages as a form of alliances, all right? You can look it up. But they will not hold together just as iron and clay do not mix. And I always look it up. All right, but let's look it up here. Okay. Did early Europe use intermarriage to form alliances? Is it still done today? Behind closed doors, maybe. Let's see. Royal intermarriage in Europe. The practice was most prevalent from the medieval era into the outbreak of World War I. But evidence of intermarriage between royal dynasties, yes. Boom. Another factor in political alliance, marriage was an important way to bind together royal families and their countries during peace and war. So this was a big, part of how a lot of these alliances came to be. You can look up the Habsburg dynasty. Okay. It's a lot of, it's a lot of history, Just got to read into it. We just need surface level to show you prophecy is real. But yes, in Europe, that's basically how a lot of these things happen. Does political marriage still happen? It happens all the time. It's not super common, but common enough. All right. In my own family, we have some inter-party marriages. They love each other and their kids and don't make their whole life about politics. But that marriage was formed. Okay. Those marriages was formed. All right. Yeah, it's all over the place. So, yeah. So this is what we're witnessing. But see, we're living at a time. All right, entering into after World War II, these alliances are being broken now. And America's at the forefront of it with a more stout look than the rest of his fellows. It says Trump's approach. All right, so it says the old world order worked within alliances, preserved the system's appearance. Trump's approach is fundamentally different. Trump does not reject power. He rejects how power is packaged. All right. His approach, personal, transactional, leader to leader, result driven, institution skeptical. That alone threatens the old order. How the Board of Peace fits into this description. The Board of Peace is seen as a revolutionary because it bypasses the UN as primary peace broker, which is established after World War II, which is history I'm tightening up on. It says, even though it's referenced as a UN resolution for Gaza, it operates outside of UN bureaucracy, has its own charter, has its own membership logic, is chaired by a single individual. To defenders of the old system, this is hearsay. The UN is supposed to be the only legitimate global peace mechanism. All right. But it allows all kind of wickedness. All right. All right. I believe it's Article 5 or something. It's one of those that this continuously broke. And all they do is veto it. Shifts authority from institutions to individuals. The old order trusts committees, procedures, rotations, bureaucracy, and continuity. Trump trusts strong leaders, direct negotiation, leverage, and speed. This resembles pre-World War I power diplomacy, not post-World War II institutionalism. All right. A little bit more, but it says why Europe reacts so strongly to what President Trump is doing. Europe is the greatest beneficiary of the old order. All right. Security outsourced to NATO, moral authority via international law, which Trump said he no longer needs that. Influence through institutions, not force. Trump pressures NATO, sidesteps EU diplomacy, talks directly to rivals, reduces Europe's mediating role. To European leaders, this looks like a strategic marginalization. All right. And see, this is why prophetically, okay, the beast is going to hate the whore. Okay, Revelation chapter 17 and 16. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore and shall make her desolate, because they're going to eventually make agreements with Russia, China. Okay, and what's going to happen is all of these nations are going to gather together. They're going to surround the small hats. All right, it's going to be, they're going to blow them to smithereens. U.S. will be drawn to World War III, all right, and pretty much the rest is history. It's going to be a bloodbath, okay? And when Yahweh returns, they're all going to stop what they're doing and fight against the coming of Yahweh. It says that here, Revelation 17 and 14. These shall make war with the Lamb, all right, and the Lamb shall overcome them. See, and that's in the book of Second Esdras, the 13th chapter, okay? So ultimately, the EU, these European countries, are going to hate the whore, all right, and they're going to make her desolate. They're going to form an alliance, okay, with the kings of the Medes, which speaks to Russia in end-time prophecy. And then the Turkey's going to leave NATO, okay, and there's going to be a bloodbath, starting with the strike on Israel, them tiny tops. And shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For God hath put it in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree to give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of the Lord be fulfilled. So, you know, they all will end on this alliance, but it's over. As we see, you know, the Lord has put a very stout spirit on Babylon. Okay, reading a little bit more of this. It's a lot of history and a lot going on, but you know, basically, why critics use the word Trump is destroying the old world order. They don't mean collapsing it overnight, but they mean delegitimization, institutions survive on belief. Okay, once enough nations believe, the UN is optional, consensus is inefficient, rules are flexible, power matters more than process. The old order loses authority even if it still exists on papers. That's what scares them. Historical parallel, why this feels seismic. This resembles a moment like the end of the League of Nations, the collapse of European empires, the transition from the Roman Republic to empire. The structures don't fall fast. Confidence in them does. Okay. Okay. So I said, how does this mirror ancient Rome? So decline or fall? Loss of legitimacy. Rome didn't fall in one event. It lost legitimacy, cohesion, and shared belief. And this is, and it goes through it. We'll go through it in another lesson. But Rome didn't collapse when enemies attacked. It collapsed when its system stopped being believed. For centuries, Rome survived on invasion, corruption, and bad rulers. What finally changed is people stopped believing Rome represented order and justice. And this is what we're witnessing with Babylon the Great. The old world order of Rome, Senate, law, tradition, shared civic religion. By the 3rd, 4th centuries, laws multiplied, but obedience shrank, authority fragmented, legitimacy moved from institutions to strongmen, which is the first and most important parallel. Okay. Parallel 1, institutional decay versus personalized power. Then Senate became ceremonial, emperors ruled by decree. So we're witnessing the same thing happening again. All right. Crisis justified bypassing norms. Today, UN authority question with multilateral bodies have seen as a slow or irrelevant. Special councils like Board of Peace created. Emergency logic replaces process. Rome normalized exceptions until they became the rule. Okay. Let's see. Fragmented authority. Let's see. It's the same thing. It's the same fall. Okay. It's the same exact. All right. Loss of moral narrative. Let's see. And these devils don't have any moral, they don't agree on anything. Okay. Economic strain and elite insulation. Rome back then, heavy taxation, currency debasement, elites protected, middle class collapsed. People stopped defending the system because it no longer defended them. This is what we're on our way to and what we're witnessing. Today, inflation, debt, austerity, global systems benefit elites. Public trust erodes, citizens disengage from institutions. When systems serve themselves, loyalty dies. Loss of moral shared narrative. Rome, civic religion hollowed out. Emperor worship politicized. Traditional virtues mocked. Moral authority fragmented. Rome lost it. Why? Well, today, no shared moral foundation. Competing value systems. Institutions claim neutrality, meaning outsourced to technology, ideology, or identity. An empire without meaning becomes, all right, procedural and brittle. This is what we're witnessing, okay? And there's more. There's way more, okay? Let's see. Final synthesis. The mirror is not one leader or one policy. It is institutional erosion, power, personalization, moral fragmentation, competing legitimacy claims, peace without righteousness. Rome fell when order remained, but the meaning died. Okay?
What's with the Board of Peace? It took a back seat to Greenland at Davos. Maybe it deserves more attention. The Board of Peace is President Trump's vehicle for overturning the world order. That is the world order that America itself established after World War II. It is a sweeping initiative. It started as a way to rebuild Gaza, but Trump wanted to do much more. It looks like he wanted to replace the United Nations. He's no love for the UN, and he's not too happy with NATO either. So in true Trumpian style, he organizes his own world order. And he's running the show, totally. He's in full control of the Board of Peace. He decides who is on it. He approves the agenda. He can veto any decision. He can dissolve the board. He is the inaugural chairman, and he can appoint his own successor. No question, it is Trump's Board of Peace. The Europeans, they're very wary. They don't want to move away from the United Nations. Britain and France are permanent members of the Security Council. They don't want to see that influence eroded. But the big powers in the Mideast, they've signed up. Israel, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, and they're going straight at rebuilding Gaza. The Board of Peace will convene a conference in D.C. to bring private investment to the rebuilding effort. The point is, Trump is doing it. The United Nations is not. Same with Russia. It is Trump's guy, Steve Witkoff, who is meeting Putin today. Zelensky meets Trump today. Where is the United Nations? Trump's overturning the existing order because it's not been working well. Trump is creating a new order because America is the only power that can get the job done. And Trump is the only president who has the global clout to pull it off.
There you go. And ultimately, it's that technocracy. Okay, that they're really setting up. Okay. Did Trump just trigger, all right, the Great Reset? Okay. Yes, that's what he's doing. Okay, and they're purposely collapsing that dollar as well. So we're living in some very interesting times, as all of these moves are being made to create chaos and bring a new order. Let's see what this do.
Trump's border peace is already a total failure. Not even Trump backing down on his tariff threats was enough to get Europe to join a so-called board of peace. Instead, only a small handful of European countries joined the signing ceremony for the alliance meant to oversee the reconstruction of Gaza. No major allies. So Trump was flanked by countries like Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, and Argentina, which is also reportedly considering joining and paying a $1 billion entry fee, but only if the U.S. unblocks all Russian assets on U.S. soil. But also it's the fact that Trump would even extend an invitation to Russia at all when it's still openly laying waste to Ukraine that's caused the U.S.'s most valuable allies to refuse to join. Also, the board's so-called master plan for Palestine would be turning it into what they called a high-tech free market economy, with reconstruction beginning only in the zones that have been fully demilitarized. You get the U.S. promising to reintegrate some members of Hamas into a new Palestinian police force, but that only after heavy U.S. and Israeli vetting, and, Hamas is famously very trusting of handing over things to Israel. Also importantly, since it's been out of the news recently, since October, when the latest ceasefire went into effect, Israel has killed more than 460 people, including more than 100 kids, and most recently, 3 journalists. But hey, for now, share to spread the word.
It's way more than that. All right, stop. Okay, so NATO chief warns Europe that it can't defend itself without the U.S. Okay. NATO Secretary Mark Rutte has warned that the EU would be unable to defend itself without the U.S. So who are they going to link with to defend themselves? That's the question. And what NATO allies are going to join. Okay. He told the lawmakers at the European Parliament that if they thought otherwise, they should keep on dreaming. And on paper, that's true. But prophetically, all right, the Lord, let's get Jeremiah 50, right? Because again, the end game for Babylon is perdition. Okay. Jeremiah 50:9, for lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country. So Russia is going to lead. Okay. And they shall array themselves against her. From thence she shall be taken. Their arrows shall be as a mighty expert. Okay. And Chaldea shall be a spoil. All that spoil her shall be satisfied, saith the Lord. Because you were glad, because you rejoice, O ye destroyers of my heritage, because ye have grown fat. All right. As the heifer at grass, you're basically full of your own BS. Okay. Even how tacky this is, he's still proud. Okay. So the Lord, verse 14, put yourselves in array against Babylon round about, all ye that bend the bow, shoot at her, spare no arrows, for she hath sinned against the Lord. So something is going to take place. All right. Could be centered around this Iran situation. All right. But ultimately this this thing is getting ready to go left. But the Lord has them in it. As the scriptures say, the pride of thine heart have deceived thee. See? And he's proud as hell. Okay. And the Lord has him in a very stout spirit. Okay. But these European nations are going to form an allegiance with Russia and these various other nations that are going to gather together. All right. Along with Iran. And it's not going to look good. Israel will be the first target, but America will be drawn in. The Lord is going to put it in their hearts to fulfill his will. Right. So he put it in their hearts to fulfill his will to form this dominant alliance. But Esau is the end of the world. So we're looking at the very end of it. That's what Daniel, the 2nd chapter, goes into. That's what Daniel, the 7th chapter, goes to. All right. How they would dominate and win. But at the very end, The Lord is breaking up their whole setup, man. Okay. So let's see here. California rejoins the health organization after Trump's U.S. withdrawal. More confusion, more division, Egyptian against Egyptian. Right? How does that even work? America withdraws, but the state of California joins. I have to look into how is that even possible. Okay.
And California Governor Newsom inks a deal to join the WHO. Reports Friday say California is the first state to join the WHO after President Trump announced he's withdrawing the U.S. from the organization at the World Economic Forum. Newsom's office says the Golden State would be joining the WHO's Global Outbreak Alert and Response Network. This would be an information sharing agreement that circumvents federal agencies like the CDC.
Interesting. So the United States withdraws, but California joins. So I'll look more into that, but it is nothing good. It's just division. Okay. And they're still talking about Iran, right? Which is key in end time prophecy as well. We'll get more into that. We just saw that. Okay. So we're living in a beautiful time, man. I just wanted to, sort of get into this whole board of peace thing and, what's going on with it. Because it's like they move from one thing to the next, so, I just do these lessons to give you understanding on a basic level, because I'm pretty sure there's brothers who can tap into this very, way more technical and, but again, we're looking at a kingdom divided. Okay. He breaking it down here. All right. Matthew 12:25. Every kingdom divided against himself is brought into destruction. Daniel 2:43. The iron mixed with miry clay. Strong structures, weak cohesion, meaning they don't agree. Okay, on paper it looks good, but Rome fits Daniel's prophecy precisely. All right, but Rome has been revived. Okay, America is Rome revived. Okay, so let's see here. So we'll leave it there. It's a lot in this, but through the Spirit, we'll leave it there. And hey, we'll be back with more, man. Because every time you look up, there's something new happening, man. So, oh yeah, they're getting ready to kick that hate speech laws. It's getting ready to, they're getting ready to be an uptick in that. We here. Let's type here and see what they got on this site. Iran threatens to sink USS Abraham Lincoln as the Middle East edges closer to a showdown. So keep your eyes on prophecy, man. Yep. And this whole divide with ICE, we'll get into that next, Lord willing. All right. So hopefully you're edified. We'll leave it there. Shalom.